G'day folks, Wren here, and today I wanted to do the try a chapter tag. I specifically wanted to do it for all of the 2021 releases that I haven't read yet. So this is all of them, there's quite a few. I've currently just put them in like publication order, so this first one was released in January and at the bottom was released in September of 2021. Now for a lot of these, I don't actually plan on reading them anytime soon, so I thought the best way to kind of gauge my interest in them was to do this try chapter tag. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the first sentence of each of them aloud and then put them in like my most interested to least interested order, and then I'm going to read the first chapter of them. Figure out if I'm still interested in all of these or if I just bought them for the hype. Also, my reading taste has changed since 2021, so a lot of these are more fantasy books, which I was more interested in last year, but 2022 I'm definitely more interested in horror type books. So that's probably why a bunch of these haven't been read. But we'll start with the first one. So the first one is Remote Control by Nnedi Okorafor. I really don't know what this is about. It's really short, which I enjoy. Okay, so the first chapter is 25 pages. And for a book this short, that's kind of surprising. Anyway, let's read the first chapter. The moon was just rising when Sankofa came up the dirt road. Well, that tells me nothing. Okay. I have no words. That's just a nothing first sentence, which is sad because I was really interested in this and now I just don't care as much. But that cover though. Such a good cover. So the next book is Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. I was so excited for this when it first came out, and I'm still really excited for it, but I just still haven't picked it up. Also, if you can hear noises, Chopper is now in the room. And he's gonna cry because he can't come up on the couch with me. Well, this is cool, it's got like a thing here. This book contains classified and magical information. Do not read without the proper permission. I mean, I like that. Okay, the first chapter is only 10 pages, so that's a good time. Okay, so the first sentence. I'm sitting in the principal's office. Wow. Okay. And the second sentence is again. Cool. Again, these first sentences aren't doing much for these books. I am still interested in, again, like another gorgeous cover. But yeah, these first sentences, this isn't going so well. Okay, next we have Detransition Baby by Tori Peters. Ooh, and yeah, I got this from Rabble Books, which is a Australian bookstore, but they have a queer subscription service thing, which I am a part of. Well, chapter 1 says 1 month after conception. The first chapter is 44 pages. Okay, first sentence. The question for Reese: were married men just desperately attracted to her? Or was the pool of men who were available to her as a trans woman only those who had already locked down a cis wife and could now explore with her? The easy answer, the one that all her girls advocated, was to call men dogs. So that was more than the first sentence. There were like 2 questions, and so I just read both the questions and then the answer. Like, again, I guess because I read a little bit more than the first sentence, I am a little bit more intrigued by this one. So I guess technically the first sentence is the question for Reese: were married men just desperately attracted to her? So I was just going off of that. I'm not as interested because it just like it gives off cheating vibes, and that's not something I like to read about ever. But I don't know. And like, again, this was never really a book I was gonna pick up in the first place, just because the title kind of put me off of like detransition, and as someone who identifies within the trans community, this was just not giving me good vibes. But I'll give it a go. So next we have Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. This is just an ARC copy, so I really don't know what this is about either, but isn't that gorgeous? Okay, so there's a prologue that's just a page. Should I read the prologue? Okay, so the first chapter is 17 pages. I think what I'll do is I'll read the first line of the prologue and then the first sentence of the first chapter, and we'll go from that. So the first sentence of the prologue is, "Let me tell you the story of a righteous man." That's intriguing. I am interested so far. And then the first sentence of chapter 1. "I am Ariadne, Princess of Crete, though my story takes us a long way from the rocky shores of my home." Less intrigued by that than I was by the prologue sentence, but I don't know, something about this I'm very kind of interested in, so I think this is going to take first place so far. That's interesting, because that one was really one that I didn't think I would like. I just picked it up because I saw it, but it sounds kind of interesting. So next we have The Crown of Gilded Bones by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is the third book in the Blood and Ash series, which I have loved, and I just have kept putting this off. But as this was a 2021 release, I thought I should include it in this. It's also chunky. If I can get myself really hyped for this through this video, that's going to be great, because I need to read this. So the first chapter is 31 pages. I don't know if the first sentence is going to spoil anyone, but if you don't want to know the first sentence of a third book in a series, skip this part. The first sentence is, "Lower your swords," Queen Eliana commanded, her hair shining a glossy onyx in the sun as she sank onto one knee. Huh. So I am intrigued, but part of my interest is because I gave the first two books in this series 5 stars. So I am intrigued. So I think this might take like second or third place so far. Okay, next we have Dial A For Aunties by Jessie Sutanto. Okay, so this one also has a prologue that is 3 pages. Okay, so the first chapter is 21 pages, and I think I'll do what I did for Ariadne. I'll read the first sentence of the prologue and the first sentence of the first chapter. So, the prologue. 8 years ago. There is a curse in my family. That's intriguing. So then there's a part 1 section. It says, "Girl meets boy. There might be insta-love and also someone might die. We'll see." Interesting. And the first chapter. So present day. I take a deep breath before pushing open the swinging doors. That's a nothing sentence. But the first sentence of the prologue is intriguing. Ooh, and now I'm just like in the mood for just fun times, because that is kind of seeming like what this book might be about. So this is definitely high up on my list of intrigue as well. Then we have House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. This also has a prologue that is a couple pages actually, which is 5 pages. And then the first chapter is about 7-ish pages. So again, I'll read the first sentence of the prologue and the first sentence of the first chapter. So, prologue. I was 10 years old the first time I realized I was strange. Fair. And the first sentence of the first chapter. My breath snagged when I saw my sister's face staring up at me from the floor. That's giving me kind of spooky vibes, which I know is what the book is about. Well, I don't know what the book's about at all, but I know that there are spooky vibes. I'm kind of intrigued. Like, those first sentences weren't super great, but kind of intrigued. Next we have The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. Once again, we have a prologue, but that's just one page. The first chapter is only 3 pages. Prologue. Edward Fosker was a murderer. Well, hell, okay. That was getting in there. It's a good first sentence. First sentence of the first chapter. A few days earlier, Mariana was at home in London. That means nothing. It's not a bad first sentence, at least for the prologue. So kind of interesting. Next book we have is Flashfire by T.J. Klune. This is the second book in the Extraordinary series. His little dedication. Oh gosh. Okay, this is the thing with this book. So because in the Extraordinaries world, our main character is a fanfic writer, so we get little snippets of the fanfic, and this book starts with a chapter from the fanfic. So I'm not going to read that, but the chapter is 15 pages, including the fanfic. Like, when I read the chapter, I will read the fanfic, but for the first sentence, I'm just going to read from the chapter proper. Oh, I should also say, if you don't want spoilers, because this is the second in a series, skip this part. Nicky, yes, Seth groaned, and Nick had never been prouder of himself in his entire life. Well, they're really getting to it. I'm very intrigued. It just fun times, which is a lot to do with TJ Klune. But yeah, that was certainly a sentence to start on. Oh, TJ Klune, every time. Next we have She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. And this one is once again from Rabble, the queer book subscription. The first chapter is 29 pages. Huai River Plains, Southern Henan, 1345. Zhongli village lay flattened under the sun. Okay. That's potentially interesting. Next we have Iron Widow by Zirinjay Zhao. Oh, and we have a content warning. Good job. Love those. We again have a prologue, and the prologue is 5 pages, and the first chapter is 10 pages. So prologue. The Hundans were coming. Okay. Oh, Choppy, yeah. Chapter 1. The butterfly that better not be my dead sister. Well, howdy. For 18 years, my unibrow has saved me from being sold into a painful, terrifying death. Oh my god, that's fun. I am interested. That's going on top of the pile, I think. Next we have Pony by R.J. Palacio. Okay, so at the beginning of the chapter there's a bit of a, like a historical letter. I won't read that for the first sentence. I'm confused about how this is formatted. Oh, I don't like this. This is formatted oddly. So we have like part 1. I'm going to assume it's part 1, not chapter 1. And then we've got number 1 here. And then 2 down here on the same page. And it just goes on like that. So unless, and then we have part 2, unless, okay. So I think maybe instead of parts, they're chapters, I think. If so, chapter 1 is 19 pages. The formatting is kind of confusing me. Okay, but first sentence is, it was my bout with lightning that inspired Pa to become immersed in the photographic sciences, which is how this all began. Oh, so it's about like old-timey photos. That makes sense that there are photos in here now. I'm interested. Okay, next we have The Flames of Albiyon by Jean Z. Menzies. This also has a prologue, which is just a page and a bit. And the first chapter is like 9 pages, I think. Okay, for this one I'm not going to read the prologue for the first sentence because the prologue seems to be like historical letter type thing, so that's not going to give me any information. So I'm going to start from chapter 1. The egg. There really was no way she could ignore it. That's it. So yeah, that doesn't tell me much. And lastly, we have Empire of the Vampire by J. Christoph. There's this page that doesn't really say it's a prologue, but I won't read that for the first chapter. And then I'm not sure because we've got this thing called Sunset that is a couple pages, but then we've got book 1, which then says chapter 1. Okay, so I think this Sunset is the prologue. Okay, so I'll read the first bit of Sunset. Okay, so the first chapter is 6 pages and the prologue thing seems to be about 13. So I'll read the first sentence of the prologue and then the first sentence of the first chapter. So the prologue. Sunset. It was the 27th year of Day's death in the realm of the Forever King, and his murderer was waiting to die. Okay. And the first chapter of Apples and Trees. It all started with a rabbit hole, Gabriel said. Well, that first sentence didn't tell me much, but the first sentence of the prologue was interesting. Right, so I'm now going to put them in an order of what I'm most excited for and least excited for. Okay, so I think I've got this set up as my most interested and least interested. So, at the bottom we have Detransition Baby. Like I said, the first sentence seemed to be kind of veering on the cheating thing. I don't think that's what it's about, but that was just the vibes that the first sentence gave me. Then we have the Maidens. First sentence wasn't really doing much for me. Amari and the Night Brothers. First sentence was kind of a nothing sentence, but I did appreciate the like lightheartedness of the feel of the writing. We have House of Hollow. I did really just like the vibes that were kind of spooky, unsettling vibes, so I liked that. And we have Ariadne, which is probably the most surprising in this whole stack, because I really didn't think that would be a book for me, and it actually is really intriguing to me. And then the first one we have Iron Widow. I am not particularly shocked about that. I've been wanting to read this for months and I just keep putting it off. And that first sentence was fun, and that's for some reason I didn't think this book would be fun. I thought it would be great, I just didn't think it would be like a fun time. So this is currently the stack we've got going for most interested to least interested. Okay, so I'm just going to pull up a random number generator to choose which one of these I will read first. Number 1 being Iron Widow, 14 being Detransition Baby. So hopefully you can see this. There we go. 3. 1, 2, 3. Dial A for Aunties. Okay. So I just finished the first chapter of Dial A for Aunties, and like, it's cute. So far it's just been main character Medi having like some lunch or something with her aunts and her mum, and they all run a wedding business. Each one of the like aunts and the mother, they take a different role of the wedding business. So one does the cake, one does flowers, one does entertainment, and one does hairstyles, and then Medi does photography. And is talking about how, you know, all of the men in their family either die or leave, and it's just the women left now. And there's a lot of like cultural things because they are Chinese Indonesian, and Medi can't really speak Mandarin very well, so she's like having to like switch back between Mandarin and English, you know, depending on the aunts, and then the aunts will be speaking Mandarin and she'll have to try and translate, and then she doesn't quite understand. So that was really interesting, and just like the cultural things of just like family first type situation. And then by the end of the first chapter, you know, you find out that Meddy's mum has been like catfishing someone and has set up a date for Meddy and this person, and it's so just ridiculously sketchy, and the mother and the aunts just have no idea how sketchy it is. They're just like, oh, it's fine, you know, you need a husband. And so like, it's funny. I am just like not in the mood for this type of story lately. It was a good fun time, but I probably won't be picking this one up for a while. Because yeah, that first chapter was just a bit eh. Now let's pick my next one. I think I'm just going to keep doing the random number generator because I don't like making decisions. Ooh, okay. So 12. Oh, I don't know if I can do this without it all falling. Okay, so number 12 is Remote Control by Nnedi Okorafor. This one had a long chapter of like 20 something pages. No idea what this was about. I thought this was more sci-fi than it was. It seems a bit more fantasy-esque. The main character is often referred to as like the child of the devil, and she seems to go around and kind of act like a grim reaper and like kills people that are ready to die. Everyone around her seems to be terrified of her, and they give her whatever she wants, even though she doesn't really want much besides like food. She glows, and that has something to do with how she kills people. I'm very confused. I am definitely interested in it. Especially the ending of the first chapter when it got really in detail about how she killed someone. That was right up my alley of just weird, creepy, kind of gruesome. But I have no idea what this is about. But it sounds interesting, so there's that. On to the next one. Okay, so we're on to the next book. Chopper is here to say hello. Hi, Chopper. Okay, so I'm gonna generate a new one. Quick. 8. Ooh, The Flames of Albiyon. Okay, next book. I wasn't particularly keen with the chapter because it really was just it really was just doing a lot of character description and a little bit of like world building, which is a pretty standard first chapter in fantasy books. But I'm mildly interested in, you know, dragon stuff. I like dragon stuff. I think I would definitely be interested in this in the future, but like I said at the beginning, I'm not really in the mood for fantasy at all lately, and this is a very classic fantasy tale of dragons. So what happened in this first chapter was, yeah, a lot of the world building. Chopper's just gonna keep crying, so sorry. But this girl, I don't know how to pronounce her name. Adaria, maybe? She was cleaning a museum, and when she went to clean the pedestal where a dragon egg was, the egg cracked, and then she got taken up to like the university council where they talked about the fact that the dragon egg has been there for centuries or something, and you know, it's never cracked before. So they're thinking that the dragon is responding to a diarrhea, and that will entail something. Yeah, do you like dragons too? So yeah, I'll probably be interested in this at some point, but not particularly right now. But let's choose the next one. Alright. Did that work? No. 7. Okay, so number 7 was pony. It was okay. It's like set in like a Western type setting, which I don't know why I didn't cotton on to that before now, but it's a Western setting. We've got Silas and his dad. His dad like gets kind of taken in the middle of the night by these ruffians that want him to do work for like a counterfeiting thing, and Silas gets told to stay behind, and then in the morning he sees that the pony that the men brought for him to ride is out the front, and then he's like, okay, I really have to go, I have to go find my dad. And that's basically all that really happens. But Silas has a ghost friend named Mittenwool. Yeah, named Mittenwool. It's like a 16-year-old boy that is a ghost, isn't a ghost. We're a bit confused about that. It's kind of it. There seems to be a bit of a connection between Silas and the horse. I don't have particularly strong feelings about it so far, but let's pick the next book. Okay. Does that work? 2. Alright, number 2 is Ariadne. So I just finished Ariadne with the first chapter. This was really good. I honestly knew nothing about this, except that it was ancient Greek. Hi Chopper. Chopper's gonna cry. I mean, I should have known from the cover that it was about the Minotaur in the labyrinth under Crete. Like, but I've always loved the story of the Minotaur and the labyrinth. I'm obsessed with labyrinths. So the fact that this is kind of hinting at that, or is about that, is really interesting to me. So we seem to follow Ariadne, who is the daughter of King Minos, and she is then also the sister of the Minotaur. So far we've just kind of gone over like bits from her childhood, like how Daedalus built the like the dancing floor that she likes to dance on, and he also made the labyrinth, obviously, and we go into how the Minotaur was created. Also get the part at the end where I'm just absolutely loving it, was Ariadne gets her ladies in waiting, maids person, to like tell her a story, and this woman tells her the story of Medusa, and not the, you know, Perseus killing Medusa. She tells her about how Medusa got her hair, or her snakes for hair, and really going in depth with that, and, you know, the horrors of just women continuously being punished for the acts of men. And it's just Ariadne realizing this as a young girl. I know, isn't it sad, Choppy? Yeah. And at the end of the chapter, Ariadne was like, you know, I'd rather be Medusa if the gods are going to strike me down for a man's acts. I'd rather be like Medusa that's going to royally let everyone know that they did wrong. So it's kind of awesome. I'm loving the female power of this. I do like the storytelling aspect. I have no idea what the story is going to actually entail, but this was really good, and I'm really glad I did read this first chapter, because otherwise this could have potentially fallen into a nun hole just because I had no idea what it was about. So pretty excited about that. Let's choose the next book. All right. 1. Iron Widow. It was pretty interesting. There are, like, I suspected there were mecha type things, but these are much more living, maybe is the right word. They're just more fluid than typical mechas. I really don't know how to explain it properly. Some of it was kind of going over my head. But in these mecha-like creatures, there is a male pilot and a female pilot, and it's mainly controlled by the male pilots. They use their chi. I don't know if it's pronounced chi, it's QI. But like their life force, they use that to power the mecha. And oftentimes the male will take the chi from the female to further power the machine, and the female ends up dying quite often. This is very much a society that doesn't give a crap about women. And hilariously that I picked this up after Ariadne, which they were both about, like, just the inequality that women face. It's honestly horrendous. And it's definitely made pretty prevalent in here, where the main character Zetian, but she knows her place and she doesn't like it, and she is going to go and enroll as a pilot concubine, is what they're called, just so she can get revenge on the pilot that killed her sister. But there was a really interesting part just in that first chapter where she's talking about gender with her friend, because they've just come across this butterfly that, like, seems to represent being both male and female, and it seems like this is the first time she's kind of thought of that. So maybe gender is going to be explored in this. Like, they were making some really good points about what would a specific chair just stop working in the mecha beings just because someone's gender was different or something like that. So that was really fascinating. I might have to change the number on here because I definitely don't have 14 anymore. Alright, so we're going to do 1 to 8. Did that work? That was 1. Empire of the Vampire. I finished Empire the Vampire, the first chapter. My brain hurts. It was kind of interesting, but also there were a lot of words and it felt like it was trying really hard to do something. I don't know what. I don't even know what to say. Like, I'll probably read it. Probably not for a really long time, honestly. And if I did read it, I would definitely have to do an audio. I really don't think I could read this physically. It's just it's not even flowery writing. It's just lots of words. I don't know. Right, let's go to the next one. I don't think that worked. I know it did. Number 8. Detransition Baby. So I didn't read all of the first chapter for Detransition Baby. I read about 13 pages and that was about the end point for Reese, the main character, doing her little intro bit. I just didn't read the whole chapter because it's a very long chapter, the longest out of all of these, and I still have a lot to read, so I just read the 13 pages. And I feel like that was still a good enough point for me to leave off and know my kind of thoughts already. So in this we are following Reese, who's a trans woman, and she has kind of got herself into a bit of a rut of just not really having much like hope and aspirations for her life. She is constantly having dangerous encounters with men, and she's just kind of given up on a lot of things, and she is just really like down on herself a lot. Then during a date, her ex rings her up and says, "Hey, do you still want a baby?" And then that's kind of where we stop, or where I stopped. Reese's main kind of goal in life was always to be a mother, but that just hadn't happened for her yet. But she really thought she was going to have a baby with the ex that called her, so drama there. And the ex is he got someone pregnant and is going to have a baby, and then somehow she's going to be a part of that situation. And it is like a good story. I am intrigued about like what's going to happen. I thought the writing would be really confronting for me because it is very like sex heavy, which is usually fine, but just the way it was spoken about in this was a little confronting for me, but I still enjoyed it. I am really intrigued to see the dynamic of Reese and Ames and whoever the other parent is. Katrina is the other parent. But yeah, I'm intrigued. Alright, let's see what the next book's going to be. Does that work? 3. House of Hollow. This was really good. It definitely had the creepy vibes that I was wanting and that I'm currently pretty in the mood for. The writing of it was also like really creepy, so that's great. It's not super much to tell. We're kind of following the youngest sister of the Hollows, and it just goes on about how something happened to her and her sisters when they were younger. Something that has to do with a scar they all have on their throats. And there's a lot of strangeness that keeps happening to them. Almost like supernatural powers type things that they may or may not have. But the younger sister kind of just wanted a normal life, but she didn't really get it. And her older sisters are coming back home, and strange things start happening again. This honestly, like, I'm very surprised at how good this first chapter was, because I don't know, it just never felt like my thing, even though like it sounds really interesting. I think because it's YA, I kept putting it off, but I think I'm not going to put it off for much longer because it's very intriguing. I like the spooky vibes of it. It's very like Goblin Core. That's exactly this. So very excited for this. Alright, what is next? Did that work? Okay, so number 2. This big boy. So, The Crown of Gilded Bones. Third book. I just love the relationship in this. It is so good. It's really the main thing that keeps us going. I don't really want to say what this is about because this is the 3rd book in the series, but it is really just immediately following on from the ending of the 2nd book, and just the way Castile looks at Poppy. It's great, and just the love that they have for each other is perfection. I love it so much. Couple more to go. Number 4, She Who Became the Sun. Okay, I didn't finish the chapter for this. I read 17 pages and nothing's really happening. Just really hearing about the suffering of this family because they're starving and wasting away and there's no food and it's really awful. And again, there's a lot of misogyny in this, and I assume that the girl is going to combat all of that. The only reason I'm stopping now is because the first chapter is pretty long, and I know I'm not in the mood for this type of story. Even reading those first 17 pages, it's very slow, and I know it's a historical fantasy, which is not really for me, and I'm skimming so much of this already that I know I'm not in the mood for this. I would like to read it one day because I know it's queer and I am interested in what little of the story I know, but for right now I'm definitely not in the mood for historical fantasy, so I'm just going to leave it at those 17 pages. 3 to go. Number 2. Cheers. Amari and the Night Brothers. Okay, so I just finished the first chapter of Amari and the Night Brothers, and I'm intrigued. So all we really got was that Amari has been having trouble at school because rich people are picking on her like the a-holes that they are, and it seems that she got a little bit too physical during a fight, and now her scholarship is going to be revoked, which kind of means she won't be able to go to the school because her mother can't afford it. We also found out that her brother went missing 6 months ago, and she's still looking for him. And by the end of the chapter, she is on her brother's email account, and he gets an email that like self-destructs after Amari's read it, and just all like, ooh, what's going on vibes. It's very interesting, and I like the writing. It's a really quick read. I mean, it is a middle grade, but it's still really quick to read, and I wasn't skimming anything like I have been the last couple books. So this has gone pretty well, and I'm definitely keen to read the rest of this. Alright, now because we've only got 2 books left, I'm just going to... I'll leave the TJ Klune for last because TJ Klune's my favourite. So, we'll read The Maidens. Kind of at a loss for words, because as I was reading that chapter I wanted to like burst out laughing just from the absurdity. Just like, oh, she was so in love with him, she's just so in love with him, and he's gone, but she's so in love with him. Wow. I think I can already see why people think this is like one of the worst thrillers ever. Yep. Alright, last one, Flashfire. Oh, TJ Klune is amazing. Oh, my battery's about to die. So this was hilarious. It was a good time. It's just Nick and his boyfriend trying to take things to the next level, and then the dad interrupting, and the dad just being just the most dad of dads, and it was a hilarious time. Thoroughly enjoyed this. Alright, so I think this is going to be my final rating of the Tri-Chapter Tag 2021 edition. So coming out on first place is House of Hollow. This had the best creepy, unsettling vibes, which is really just what I'm in the mood for lately. Then we have Flashfire, which was a hilarious time, which I should have expected from TJ Klune, honestly. Then we have Amari and the Night Brothers. I like the way it's written. It seems like it will be a really quick read, and I'm intrigued about what's going on. Then we have Ariadne, which was a very surprising read. That I was really interested in the mythology that was happening, and the writing was really well done too, and I'm like, it had this vibe that I was really interested in. Then we have The Crown of Gilded Bones, which, like, of course I was going to like because it's the 3rd book in one of my favourite series. We have Iron Widow. I'm mildly intrigued by it. I'm interested to see where it goes. We have The Flames of Albiyon. Again, I'm intrigued about what's going to happen, but the first chapter wasn't really doing much for me. Then we have Remote Control. This was weird and not at all what I expected, and I really am intrigued about what the remote control is, but the writing, it took a bit to get there. Dial A for Aunties, it seems like a fun time. I wasn't really interested in this whole catfishing thing that's happening. Detransition Baby, I really did enjoy the writing. It was really captivating. I just don't think that this particular story is really what I want to read right now, but I am definitely still interested in it. We have Empire of the Vampire. I thought this would be a lot higher up, honestly, but it was something about the writing that I didn't like. It wasn't that it was pretentious. It was just trying to use a lot of words to say not much. And then we have She Who Became the Sun. This is just, I think, very much a me thing. I'm just never really in the mood for fantasy lately, and this one in particular is a historical fantasy, so that was like doubly not what I was interested in. Then we have Pony. Pony was not what I expected it to be. I didn't realize it would be like a Western, so that's not really my thing, so that's why it's a lot lower down. I am mildly intrigued about the connection that Silas has with Pony. Well, the Pony, I don't know if its name is actually Pony yet. And I'm also intrigued about the ghost aspect of it. But the Western thing is really what drags down that rating. Then at the bottom we have the Maidens, which, oh boy, that first chapter was atrocious. It was honestly bad. Like, what even was it? I'm honestly thinking about unhauling the Maidens because it was just ridiculous, and I have no interest in reading this, like, at all. None whatsoever. But I would really like to get to at least the top 5 this year. We've got a couple months left, so maybe. So these would be my top 5. House of Hollow, Flashfire, Amari and the Night Brothers, Ariadne, and The Crown of Gilded Bones. The good thing about Crown of Gilded Bones and Flashfire is that they are continuing a series, so that's cool. This was my Tri-Chapter Tag 2021 release edition. It was a fun time to just get little snippets of these stories, and I'm really surprised by this top 5, honestly, especially House of Hollow. Came out of nowhere, and so did Ariadne. Just absolutely shocking that they got so high up. And surprising that some of the others didn't get so high. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!